At this time, I call the Crew Town Council to order. Go over to the Reverend Bradley, lead us in prayer, please.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you so much, Lord, for your Son. We thank you so much for what loyalties, Lord, you have provided. You are faithful, Lord. You have given each of the people here something to speak on. Lord, we ask that you would bless us, Lord, help us and bring us into unity. And Lord, most so than anything, Lord, we hope that the decisions and the guidings that are put here today bring honor and glory for you and for all that you have done for us. Lord, we love you, and it's in your Son's name, Jesus' name, we pray. Our Lord and Savior and friend. Amen.
Amen.
Please join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we've invited Senator Frank Ruff and Delegate Tommy Wright to give us a briefing on the General Assembly session and answer any questions that members of council or the members of the audience might have. Gentlemen, thank you for your work. We know you are friends of Crew in Nottoway County, and we're glad that you can join us tonight. And I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here tonight with my colleague, Senator Ruff. We agreed for me to go first, that he could serve as not pension.
Clean up.
That's correct. And I also commend you on starting your meeting with prayer and the pledge of allegiance. That's what we do in General Assembly. I think it's very good idea.
Yes, sir.
We stand at a very unusual time in the General Assembly this year. We adjourned on March 10th without a budget. And most of the time, in the last several years, we've been adjourning even early with a balanced budget. Now, our Constitution says that we must have a balanced budget, and we will have a balanced budget before it's over. However, the situation is such that the House budget included Medicaid expansion in it, and the Senate budget didn't. And this is the first time that I can recall since I've been serving in the House that I voted against the House budget and voted for the Senate budget. As a matter of fact, the majority of the Republicans in the House voted against the House budget, and that's unusual. And I don't have a good explanation of why the House chose, the leadership chose the course it did. That's the position we're in, and we'll deal with it. We have to. And, so the Senate, Frank will tell you more about this, but the Senate met today and took up the House budget, and they will look at that further tomorrow, and I think we'll meet next week and hopefully soon start the conferees, the process of negotiating budgets, and soon have something settled. We know that the localities, the school systems, law enforcement agencies, everyone wants to know what that budget is going to be, and we hope we can understand that. Serving the board of supervisors for several years, so I understand as well. So rest assured we're working on it and hope to get something done soon. This year, one thing that the Speaker of the House did that I was really proud of him, and out of concern for our children and what we've been hearing in different parts of the country about issues involving school safety, Speaker Cox started or formed a select committee, and this is the first time in 155 years a select committee has been formed in the House. And this committee is the Select Committee on School Safety, and we have charged ourselves with studying several areas of school safety. And that's one of our main goals, of course, for our children to be able to attend school and not to worry about their safety. We will study issues such as strengthening emergency preparedness, hardening school security infrastructure, and most schools have this, but at the very beginning have a buzz in the system, so no one can just walk into the building. They have to be first identified and a door open to let them in. And of course, also implementing security best practices, and then where we can, add additional security personnel. And some counties can't afford to have the security officers that they would like to have. And so that's one thing we're going to work on. And another issue is behavioral health resources. So that's going to be part of what we study in this year. And we will make recommendations of consideration for the 2019 General Assembly session. And as I said, we're now in a special session in the General Assembly because of the budget. And some people don't understand when you go into a special session, it doesn't mean you continue to go every day and you get paid for it. What it means is that we're in special session because our business was not completed in the regular session. And we will go back when there's business to be discussed. And the next issue will be when the Senate and the House are ready to both appoint conferees again and get back to the bargaining table and handle things out. And the governor, of course, is the one that calls a special session. We passed a resolution asking him to call a special session, and that's the way that works. There were some good things that happened in the session, though. You hear a lot of it today. There were no tax increases. We also reached some reform, some compromise reform with the governor. And that's always a good sign. And it looks like we're having, hopefully we'll have better luck and compromise and negotiation with this governor than we may have had in the past. And one of the items that we did reach agreement on was regulatory reform compromises. And this is intended to eliminate or streamline licensing requirements by 25%. Now, it'll take some time for us to work through this, but at least we're getting a start on it. Everyone knows that the problem there is with too many regulations and too much red tape. A person wants to go into business, it looks like the licensing requirements are hard. Get renewals. I get calls all the time from people who are in business and need to get their business license renewed or state certification, and they have hang-ups getting that. That costs them money, so we're going to try to do something like that. The next compromise we worked on with the governor was as far as dealing with for instance, the amount of money that is involved to classify a crime as a felony. And it was $250. And so the compromise we made was that we would increase the fee to $500. And I wasn't really too much in favor of that part of it. But the other part of the compromise was that we were going to make an effort and increase the efforts of getting the money back, restitution back for the victims. So that was another area we found for compromise. And I think it's important that we work with the governor all we can to make compromises. When it's on items that we can all agree on. And there were several issues that I put before the General Assembly this time. And Law and Order, one of them was, I was glad to put in a charter change for the town of Crewe, and that involved the police department, and I think by ordinance you were going to change the control of who was over the police department from the mayor to possibly town council or whatever the ordinance was. Still working on it?
Oh, we're doing it.
Okay. All right, that's good. So that was a good item there. Also, I put in a budget amendment for Piedmont and Piedmont Regional Jail, and that was to increase the staffing. The compensation board recognized the fact that they needed more officers. Unfortunately, this year that didn't pass, and the chairman of appropriations, he has a regional jail that fits in the same category as Piedmont Regional Jail does. So I felt bad about not getting it through, but since his didn't go through either, I couldn't feel as bad about it because he was the chairman. But I'm going to still continue to work on that, and hopefully we can improve that in the future. Also, as chairman of the State Water Commission, we don't set policy, but our goal is to study and to try to assure that the public has a safe and adequate supply of drinking water. Now, some areas are in worse shape than others, and we're affected here a lot by the drought. We were on the verge of a drought last year, and except for the wonderful rain we got over the past several months, we've been facing a real drought possibility now. And even now, it's dry. We need rain right now. So down in the eastern part of the state, though, the Tidewater area, they have a different supply as far as water. So in Wales, they have aquifers. And an aquifer is different. When it gets drained or when it's reduced, it takes a long time to charge that aquifer back again. So they're trying different methods of improving that. And believe it or not, one of the methods they're trying is the Hampton Roads Sanitation District is trying to purify their wastewater and inject that back into the aquifer. It's worked in other parts of the country, and they're working on that process now. That's what they're facing. And as the aquifer is reduced, then there's a tendency for salt water to intrude and also for land to subside. So I know that doesn't concern Ottawa County, but that's something that was important and something we do need to keep an eye on as far as the General Assembly is concerned. And along the same line, there's a lot of high consumption industry in that area, paper mills and so forth. So what they've agreed to do is to reduce their consumption, and with the agreement we would increase their permit process, where they could get a 15-year permit instead of a 10-year, and of course they'd have to pay the extra amount of money for it. So that's some of the ways we want to keep industry, but at the same time, we don't want to lose our precious supply of water either. So that's something else that we worked on. And there's a couple of issues items that I co-patron that I think are good for our area too. And one of them is stormwater regulation. And believe it or not, in some instances, the Commonwealth's stormwater regulation rules and regulations are stricter than the federal government. So we just adjusted that so that the Commonwealth's laws on stormwater regulation would not be stricter than the federal government. I think that's a common sense thing to do. Another item that was dealing with agriculture, and I'm sure you've all heard the story of people that move in from maybe New Jersey or somewhere next to a dairy farm or somewhere, and they complain about the noise and the smells and so forth, and they bring lawsuits against the farmers. And of course, they very seldom win the lawsuit, but the aggravation and the time involved and so forth really is a hazard to their business. So we passed legislation involved in that. One last thing that I'll mention to you is I've had it, mentioned to me before that it would be nice to have a state park here in Ottawa County. And it's been brought to my attention that the High Bridge Trail State Park comes within 7/10 of a mile of the town of Burkeville. And
It actually comes in, the property's supposed to come into Burkeville.
okay, but this is something that would help this whole area, this whole part of the county and so forth. So I'm working on that, and I've enlisted the help of my colleague Senator Rupp as well. And I've been talking with the folks in the department, and the problem is going to be with Norfolk Southern. And I'm not saying it's going to be a problem, I shouldn't say that. The negotiation is going to be with Norfolk Southern, because they have to abandon that property, remove the rail lines and the cross tires, and have the road bed pad so the park can place the gravel and what other substance they want to place on there. And my understanding is that the land will be made available for parking area by the community. So that's something I think would be very important.
Down in Burkeville, Mayor Marzette has told me there's a piece of land right next to the park, right next to the trail, that they're ready to cut and turn over to the state and let them do whatever they need to do with it to make it a suitable embarkation point.
Well, and one thing that I found is the General Assembly has passed all legislation and so forth necessary for the completion of this trail, of this park into Burkeville. And the Department of Conservation has also agreed to it. Only thing remaining is working with Norfolk Southern. And they've proved to be, over the years, to be a very good partner to work with. In this particular instance, it's been a slow-go process.
10 years.
Well, what happens is whenever you go to disturb land, there's always, God bless them, an environmental group that says there may be a snail daughter here, may be some sort of owl, or some sort of mineral, something that may be damaged. So they have to have a process to do this. And that's my understanding, is that they're working on a process that they can agree upon to rehabilitate this property and to abandon it. And so that is something that's going to be a major project that I'll be working on with the help of my friends Ruff too. And that's the highlights I can think of. Frank will have a lot more points for us, legislation and the budget and so forth. The only thing I'll say before he gets a chance, it's not the Republican majority that is responsible for the hole in the budget. It's the Republican minority. So, with that, I'll turn it over to my friend Summerall.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tommy. I'm glad that Tommy covered everything well, so I don't have to say anything. So, it's been a long day. We started meeting this morning at 8 o'clock. Major initiatives, major economic initiatives committee, which we several years ago made a decision the state should not rely strictly on administration when you're talking about a lot of money and a lot of jobs. You know, more sets of eyes. And so we approved 4 that we were willing to make an offer to around the state. There are companies that are looking right now and in this whole area. None of those major ones, but Brunswick County's got somebody who's looking at and bringing 775 jobs to upper part of Brunswick County. Just all sorts of opportunities out there that we think the economy and belief in the world that this is a good place to invest money is going well. Anything I say negative about the House does not relate to Tommy at all. And I'll try not to say something too negative, but the school safety special, what do you call that?
The select committee.
Select committee. First time in 150 years. Well, that's because we generally have joint committees of House members and Senate members. But the House was somewhat confused about who they were and where they're going. So they didn't work well with the Senate this year. So they created their own special committee and left us out of the equation completely. That's up to them, that's fine. This year, as in past years, my most important issue was workforce training. We started the fast track program a couple of years ago. We got it. The first ones came out of the program last April, and that was from the Powerline School here in Nottoway. That success led to a lot of other successes around the state, and so we were fighting to get more money into the project to try to keep that going properly. Everybody thinks it's the best thing we've done in education above high school level in a long, long time, because it's matching up jobs that are available, pay that can support a family, rather than people going to school with no plans of anything. I was with a group of high schoolers Saturday, and of the 8 seniors, 2 of them were going to major in psychology. I don't want to offend anybody by saying anything negative against psychology, but you don't get many jobs other than waitresses and waiters to be in psychology unless you have a master's degree or a PhD, and that's a lot of money to invest. Several years ago, we went down to a machining business in the Greensboro area because a lot of precision machinists from the Danville Community College go down there to get jobs, and there were several people that were working on the floor that had majors in psychology and sociology, great stuff, but they couldn't get a job in 2008, 9, and 10. So they went back to community college and got something. They were just as happy as they could be. We have, most people in education grew up in a different era when manufacturing was loud and dusty, and just not a great place. The clean floors, the white floors of modern technology like Rolls-Royce and places like that. You could wear an evening gown in there and come out just as clean as you went in. So we need to keep people focused on what's available out there. Senator Wagner and I, the high schools have acknowledged that we have to have people ready to figure out where they want to go when they get out of high school, so they just don't walk out into the vacancy of life. And we tried to get the Department of Education to back up the process of understanding what was available to the middle school level so that you could get some exploratory understanding of what it means, what precision machining means, what does welding mean, what does electrical work, that type thing, so that these young people would have a better vision, a better plan, so that by the time they got to high school, they could say, okay, that's what I want to do. And then they could go on from there at that point. That's one of the bills that got wrapped up in the House when they couldn't think straight from it. But anyway, probably my biggest initiative next year will be work on the Virginia Employment Commission. If you think about all the people who were looking for jobs last year in 2017, all around the state, you got the VEC with offices all around the state. You got an office in Richmond with all the executives in it. What percentage of the openings were filled, do you think, by the VEC? Anybody want to take a wild guess? Okay. Percentage, 10%? Divide that by 10. And then divide it by 5. 0.2%. The world has changed and government does not change as quickly as the world does. If you were to need a job today, the best place to go would be one of the places like Snagajob or any number of different companies that are out there that don't charge you the job. They charge the company that hires you. And everybody likes it because that company gets an employee that's been through the ringer to make sure he's not a drug addict or anything like that. So it's a good positive way of doing it. How about if we said, okay, instead of putting people in offices and desks all around the state of Virginia, why don't we assign each of those employees a certain number of people that need jobs and work with them, whether it's 1 to 20 or 1 to 100, doesn't make any difference. If you did that, you would see that the problems are either people don't want jobs, or they do not have the training or the social skills to hold a job. So you take them and you actually take them and teach them how to talk to people, how to do a job so that you can earn a living. I think that would be a better model. Right now we are in a battle about the budget. There's no question about it. When I go to high school groups, when I go to any school groups, I tell them that the government in Washington is copied after the structure in Virginia, with an executive, with 2 legislative bodies that act independently. But the problem they made in Washington, they allow omnibus bills, where you can put something totally unrelated in with something else. And that's why we have deficit spending. Because if you offer one congressman something for his district, it's going to cost some money. Same thing over here, same thing over there. Next thing you know, you can't control the budget. Governor McAuliffe decided that he wanted to bring Washington to Virginia. So he interwove Medicaid expansion into that process. And Medicaid expansion is depends on whose numbers you want to listen to, but we're talking about $1 billion, $2 billion. That is a policy issue that should be looked at and discussed and planned as its own. That's a major policy issue. And once the General Assembly, on whichever you agree or disagree with it, once you have that, then you put that into the budget. But when you try to mix that into the budget up front, it just makes it a 500-piece jigsaw puzzle. It's almost impossible to get out of. Where we will end up, I don't know. It will cost the taxpayers of Virginia in the future. The House, I'm not talking about Tommy, interwove teacher salaries and state employee salaries into that mix. Well, they deserve a raise. But they were the ones who were advocating for the Medicaid expansion because all the money was going to be spent on raises, not on health insurance, not on health care. So you're building a system that is going to be out of balance at some point, whether it's this year, next year, the year after. We don't know when it will happen. Secretary Lane tried to say that it was going to damage our bond rating if we didn't pass Medicaid expansion. The bond people don't care what's in our budget. What they care is that it's structurally sound. When you start talking about adding 300 to 500,000 more people to Medicaid, that you have no control over how much money you're going to spend on them, then that creates the uncertainty that will actually hurt our bond rating if we're not careful. The House has not put enough money into health care to cover that. So any raises that come this year will probably be the last ones for the next decade. No offense to you, Steve, but it is a bad situation. We need to structure our budget so that we take care of our people as we move forward. We should not be jumping like that. We ought to be on a consistent basis. Consider our employees, the school system or the state system as assets and treat them as assets. But you cannot say that it's right that if somebody makes 138% of poverty, that they should have 100% of health care paid for free. If you make 139% of poverty, you get zero. That just makes no sense, not logical at all. And so we will work through it. Some people think we're being cruel if we don't do it, but every child in Virginia is taken care of currently. People who are handicapped are taken care of permanently. Pregnant women are taken care of. Elderly and disabled, long-term care, they're taken care of. We need to focus on the seriously mentally ill and the disabled. Those are the people that really need help. We know that. But I'll just kind of show you that's who's getting taken care of now. These are the ones that are not. And that last column that has no blue are the childless adults who are not eligible. If somebody is in employment age, if they're 18 to 60, 65, whatever year you want to say, then those people ought to be trying to find a job and trying to get to work. I don't think I need to say anything else. I will mention a couple though, and that is hemp. That's been an interesting conversation, as Tommy knows from his last campaign. It is not growth of marijuana. That will not help happen. But hemp is a strong fiber. They've been testing it in Blackstone for 2 or 3 years now. And they make that stuff. It's great for manufacturing. There is a company in Indiana that makes these side panels for cars out of hemp. But they have to import the hemp from China or Europe just to get that product. But we think that's an opportunity for our farmers, and hemp is a natural product of Virginia. So hopefully that will move forward. As we've been through this testing process, they're going to license it to a few more. Currently, if you want to raise hemp, you have to buy the seed from either Canada or from Eastern Europe. Once you harvest the plant, you have to destroy the seeds and the next year buy them again, which means that those seeds, those plants never acclimate to our climate. If you did it over the course of 2 or 3 or 4 years, they would tend to acclimate better and make better plants. So those are the type of things that I think should be optimistic in the agriculture realm. The trail, hopefully that will work. Some of that will be hindered by the fact that the railroad companies were so powerful at the turn of the last century that every county, every clerk of the court ended up recording the deeds differently throughout the things. And so to get through Brunswick County and Mecklenburg County, it took forever to research. They assigned one person in the Attorney General office, and it took them a year or two just to go through all those titles and try to search back 120 years, 150 years. So.
Well, in Burkeville, it's a very small stretch, and anything that you gentlemen can do would be greatly appreciated. I do know that. We know that it will bring in probably 100,000 people a year whenever you have Virginia State Park.
People are excited about that. Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not.
I did have one question. We haven't seen any traction on the lottery for localities. I know y'all had suggested one time it might be put into a study. I assume it did not make the study cut.
It did not make the study cut.
Is there a way to introduce legislation next year so that maybe it will make the study cut?
Well,
even if we know.
We can raise the issue again in the JLARC committee, which does the studies. We have stopped allowing legislation to get through that for studies by JLARC. That study has to come from members of JLARC, a subcommittee that evaluates which ones. It might be a better way of doing it is to try to mix it into the study of local government, taxing authorities and its resources. There is a consensus belief that we're not doing that right, that we're hamstringing counties and towns in the way they can raise money. And it was never intended to be a bad thing, but it's just not fair for a city to be able to tax certain things. Towns can tax other certain things. Counties cannot tax much of anything except real estate and personal property. So it's we need to. There is a study that is going on now, and I will try to talk to him and Daniel about trying to get the issue of the lottery into that. But if that committee is successful in coming up with something, it might be better just to find other sources. I think at least once a month, Tommy and I hear from a constituent says, I thought all the money was supposed to go to education. And you have to explain to him it does go to education, but if you start peeling it off to other things, then you're going to, it's going to be harder to explain the whole thing.
Okay. Any questions, gentlemen?
Just a couple quick questions for Delegate.
Tom? Oh, good.
Yes, sir.
With the select committee on school safety, have you started from scratch, or have you looked at the Governor McDonald's task force on school and campus safety, the work from that in 2013?
Well, we've had one report so far, one meeting, and we've received reports from that and other studies as well. And we've got several meetings planned, and we want to hear from different school systems about what they're doing. And one of my main concerns is to be sure that this is not passed along to the locality as unfunded mandate. And so it stands to reason that the higher populated counties and the ones with more revenue are in a better position to handle these things. But our concern is for safety. And we would have loved to have the Senate along. We thought they would form their own committee. We didn't. But at any rate, one thing I'd like to say with the hemp thing is, people thought I was opposed to hemp. I might have thought that. But I did vote against hemp the first time it came through the Agriculture Committee because the Commonwealth Attorneys Association said that as the statute was written, you couldn't convict someone in possession of marijuana. So they got the language straight, and I voted for it. But we had a meeting last summer, one of the local universities, and gave us a good update on hemp and how, some of the downsides to it, which are considerable, and some of the positive sides. But the federal government's got to rule first. That's what's blocking us. But we can study it. That's what we're doing at the different universities now. But anything that we can do to help the farmers, I'm all for it.
Right. Thank you.
Just if I could go back, from that study, there was money put into education in Virginia that essentially paid for lots, for the doors, for some cameras around, things like that. So I don't think that Virginia students are in nearly as bad situation as some others are. It fascinates me to believe that we often try to close the gate after the horse is out. But somebody who's crazy is crazy, and they're going to get into past whatever system you've got, if you're not prepared. Some people talk about guns. I know when my wife was teaching, I would tell you that there were probably a couple of teachers around it, and they were trained, they knew how to shoot. But probably a better solution would be tasers, because they can slow you down awful fast too.
And one of the things you have to be aware of is that a lot of these problems come from inside the school. And that's why we need to focus on behavioral resources and to have better systems in place to recognize students that have problems or have concerns or conditions that need to be taken into account. Because more than someone just breaking into the school and doing the damage, it's coming a lot of times from the students that are there, or some that were students. So it's not only just keep people from breaking in, but it's keeping the ones on the inside that may have a problem from acting out on some of those problems.
I don't think to extend too long, but we're so politically correct that if a student has a problem, that if it was recorded at the time, properly at the time, and progressed worse as they got older, then at a certain point, you could tell law enforcement, you need to keep an eye on this person. In school or out of school, you can do that at a shopping center, anything else. But we don't record a lot of the things that people that are questionable are doing in elementary school. If you looked at it and you saw them getting better, that would be fine. If you looked at them so it getting worse, then it'd be time to talk to them. When my wife was teaching in fifth grade, she had a kid who had a belt. He was trying to hang himself in the class. Here's a kid, he's not in prison now, he will be, but that's just, if you don't watch those things and take care of those deviant issues at an early age, they're gonna, usually a lot of times they get worse, sometimes they get better. You can tell the difference.
This may be a personal observation, but it seems to me that in the instances where people have gotten hurt, there were protocols and standard operating procedures in place, and if they would have been followed, then those instances may not have happened. So is there any type of conversation that you're talking about making sure that we're enforcing and going along with what we already have in place, as opposed to just looking for new ways to keep people secure? Because it seems, in some instances at least, that the protocols were there, they just failed.
Well, while Tom was getting ready, looking up his notes here, I'll tell you that when I was in the House of Delegates, we had a town meeting in Meharrin, and the two candidates for sheriff were there, Prince Edward County, and I made a remark that sheriff's job is to come in and clean up the mess afterwards. In a rural county, in a school that does not have a resource, does not have any kind of officer or anybody protection, it's just a matter of cleanup. It takes, anyone can create havoc in just moments. You can't get law enforcement there fast. So it's an issue.
Well, that's one item I forgot to mention, but that is one of the bullet points, and one of the items that we'll be considering is developing prevention protocols at primary and secondary institutions and seeing that the ones that are already there are in place. As an example, there was a summit held recently of all the superintendents in this area, and it was dealing with that very issue of school safety. And that's a good idea. All the superintendents get together and safety officers. They give ideas, things going on in their school, things they see that are wrong. But we need to get some of the basic protections in place and then concentrate, as Frank was mentioning, on people that have a tendency to act out on some of these issues they have, and at the same time, not be politically correct enough to carry it to the extreme. But, sometimes people, youngsters, go through stages and so forth, and don't necessarily be a danger just because of how they currently act at one particular time. But it's something that does need to be done and followed, and protocols need to be in place.
All right, are there any other questions from members of council? Very good. Gentlemen?
We bored them to death.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. We thank you very much. We have given up on lottery for localities, and we appreciate the work you're doing on the High Bridge Trail, getting that into Burkeville, because that, even though it's in Burkeville, people will have to travel through Crew to get food and gas and things of that nature, so we know it's going to impact us as well.
People are excited about it, and I know Frank and I are, and we're working on it, and we're getting good cooperation from the localities as well.
Well, one last question, and I'm just kind of throwing it out there. If the lottery for localities deal met with massive opposition in the General Assembly, is it feasible that the town could actually establish a gaming commission? Could the state give them permission to do that?
Well, I understand that the Pamunkey Indian tribe is looking for a place for a casino.
Okay.
I think the kids got to get the edge on it.
Well, they're talking about multiple ones, so.
It's all right. Just there's more one way to skin a cat. Anyway, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
I think there was one more question.
Oh, was there a question in the audience?
Was there a question, lady?
There was, but I think I'll just leave
Okay.
it.
We
be.
really enjoyed
Well,
seeing you.
actually, when I hear you guys talk about, safety in our schools, I just have to make a comment. I just think it's like you guys are all putting the cart before the horse. We've got kids coming up from the time they're so little with no direction and being put on medication at young ages with, and I have to wonder myself, I've wondered so many times, how much the medication is playing in the minds of these children when we're altering what goes on in our brains. Instead of having coping mechanisms, we're medicating our children and creating, I hate to admit it, but, being a grandparent of 10 kids or whatever, we see how one set of parents is raising the kids with no meds and getting these kids outside and playing with them and romping with them and letting them be kids. And these kids are growing up, in my opinion, so much healthier, with coping mechanisms and the thought process to be kind and gentle. And then we have another set on this side where the entire family is being medicated, So guys talk about gun safety, but you guys need to be talking about the mental health issues that go along with all of this as we're bringing this population up. I don't know, does it make sense?
Yeah, there is a.
I mean, we could go on about this all night, but it, I see it, and I see it in my own family and my own grandchildren, and it's sad. I mean, had I been a child in today's world, I would be on medication. Is there anybody in this room that would not agree? I would have been treated for, I would have been treated. I would have been treated for hyperactivity, okay? But seriously, and my mom's attitude was, when I got in trouble at school, I can remember the teachers wanting to put me behind keep me in at recess and make me sit there to punish me. And she said, that's the worst thing you can do. Make her go run her for 15 minutes and she'll calm down, and she was right. So I just had more energy. Does that make sense? And so I came back, I went on, I've gone on to college, I've done decent things with my life. So, without medication.
Well, there's a lot that
So,
we're focusing on.
Just a thought, okay.
And one of the committees I'm on the early childhood study, and that's an important thing, trying to get into the household a little earlier. First 18 months of a child's life are just so much
Crucial.
of their learning. And then it gets down to our point, and we're just kind of drifted down. But that's when, and so that deals with emotional issues, that deals with the intellectual issues, and if they don't have a good start, they're going to be a step, 2 steps behind. Go out.
Well, it seems to me like we have a whole population of kids coming up like that.
The schools are really being expected or put in the position of having to deal with society's problems.
I have a daughter that's a school teacher.
When you look at the condition in which children are raised, which the schools have no control over, we have the problem with drugs, and the problem with single-parent families. We have the problem with God being taken out of the classroom and replaced with what? Secularism.
Yep.
And when all these things have happened, in a lot of ways, I'm sorry to say, we're reaping what we've sown as a nation. And there are answers to the problem, and one of them is turning back to God. That's one of the things that we need to do as a nation. But also the schools and the teachers, they're being asked to confront situations that they're not prepared to do. If you've got a degree in teaching history, science, or whatever it is, and if you don't have the skills to deal with behavioral problems and children who are coming from these types of environments, it puts you in a position where you're expected to teach and control the classroom at the same time. So it's 2 different issues, really. We're trying to make the schools safe, and we're not dealing with the gun issue at all, or knives, or any other type of weapon. We're dealing with the infrastructure and with the behavioral, recognizing behavioral problems and so forth. But what you mentioned is exactly correct. It's largely a societal problem that wasn't there when Frank and I were doing this school.
Well, or me.
Gentlemen, thank you for your time here.
Thank y'all.
And let us know what
She has
They're clapping.
I won't be long like her if you'll answer one question. Do either of you have any experience in education? Very good.
Well, his wife taught for 30-some
That
years.
doesn't
Wait a
work.
second.
That
Wait a second.
doesn't
I'm not
work.
through yet. My wife taught for 30 years.
That's your experience?
I taught for 1 year.
Oh,
did
you don't
teach.
have any
Well,
experience.
He learned in a
Hey,
year.
I did teach. When I taught, it wasn't like it is now.
Oh, no, I know that. It
So-
wasn't when I did. But let me say this. We don't have any parenting going on in the homes. I don't care whether it's single parent, 2 parents, whatever. Technology is doing the teaching now. They are learning how to use their thumbs and bash everything that comes in front of them. And so there's no parenting going on. And that's what's going to hit this world in about 20 years, and they have no skills. We still have some people who are students, true students, some few, and they are the exclusion, not the usual. I would say to you, it would be really good if all of the people who are in our assembly, etc., all of the members of that, would substitute teach for 1 month when you were not in session. I think that would be an excellent idea.
That would be cruel to the students.
Oh, no, oh, no.
Mrs.
You
Martin.
would learn things and know how to approach a lot of things better.
Well, let me just say that 1 year was enough for me.
Mrs. Martin, you're next.
I'm next.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Take care.
gentlemen.
Thank you. See y'all later.
You'll take care. Thank you.
Well, all of you know me.
Thank you very much.
I am the coordinator of the 100-mile yard sale. This is an old flyer every year, I tell you that. But I tell you that you're going to get new ones. Before the yard sale gets here, it is July 7th this year. The hub is still Burkeville. And one of your patrons here pointed out to me that Crew is so much larger than anybody else for the sponsors. I'd have to give that credit to Bill Foss. Bill Foss has gotten her to work in Crew. He also came in and built up the Crew Burkeville chamber and all of that, and I'd have to give that credit to him. However, I am still the coordinator, and I remember talking to the radio announcer, this everybody's favorite Steve, several years ago, and he said, I see that you have 12 years in the future already listed on here. I said, why do you say that to me? He said, well, how old are you? And I didn't tell him how old I was, but I said I wouldn't be but 84 in 12 years from whenever that was. So why wouldn't I be able to continue to do it? Well, I'm still not 84. But anyway, what I'm telling you is, it is growing. It is growing. And I don't have to grow it anymore. I get calls and say, why couldn't we extend it to this point? And so we're going to Mosley this year, which is only 5 miles east of Chula Junction Flea Market on 360. But we're growing, and we're going to continue to do that. We will eventually go all the way to Richmond, and I won't have to continue to come and talk to you because it's going to perpetuate itself in another few years. But we still need a liaison in every little community. I have one in this community because Bill works it up very, very well and delivers the flyers and does that. Phil has been most helpful to me, and your council has been so wonderful to me. I have to tell you, Mr. Eames, that Crew adopted me. I never have lived in Crew. I lived in Burkeville, and that would have been my native town, my hometown of choice if I had been able to choose of the ones I lived in. But Crew has adopted me, and I certainly am proud of that. And I would like you all to continue to work with me and to push this and to push your merchants to do more. I'm bringing in more in one day for your merchants than anybody else ever does. I can't tell you that it's ever going to happen, but we are always going to have this now that it has started, as long as yard sales take place. You know, they haven't been here always, and it is a phase. So when the yard sales fade out, then so will the 100-mile yard sale. But it's going to be bigger and better.
Do you actually
This
have
year.
numbers?
Do I have numbers about
Numbers
what?
of-
About what?
Numbers of people that come through because of the yard sale.
Thousands and thousands, I can tell you that.
But how do you gauge that? How do you measure that?
Well, by the number of people that stop in at the different places. I tried to have them sign a book one year. It was impossible.
Sure.
And this is up down in the middle of town of Burkeville.
Sure.
Joe Marzette will state to you in no uncertain terms. Billy has heard him say it. By the way, Billy, we did not know who you were tonight. We have always seen you in the dress-up suit, and we had no idea who that man was. But anyway, Joe Marzette said there were more people in Burkeville when this sale went on that came through when Lee and Grant came through Burkeville. So I cannot count them, no, I cannot. But I can tell you that it has been a success, a real success every year. The worst year that we had, it rained buckets, and it rained on into the morning up till lunchtime. But it rained all night, and all the stuff that had been put out at night, we had to clean up the next morning, etc. That is the only time that's been the least less successful. As long as the weather is pretty and not raining, we are just, it's phenomenal. It is phenomenal. But no, I can't count people. I wouldn't even try.
Good luck.
I do have people from out of state setting up in Burkeville between me and the church. And by the way, if you don't know it already, I don't live here anymore. I don't live in Burkeville, and I don't live in the county. But I still have a property that's linked to me, so I can continue with this. So I would appreciate it if you would help me in every way that you can. And I need to go to another meeting, so give me those blessings very quickly so I can move on.
Yes, ma'am. We're here for you.
Okay, thank you so much, that's what I
Yes,
need.
ma'am.
And please, if it's anything that you know that I can do that can make it better for you all, let me know. I only have the one phone number that is listed on here. Oh, no, I only have the phone number that is 804 number now. The 434 number is no good. It's just one number on the card that you said you carried in your wallet. And the rest of you should when I bring these. I will have those here at this council meeting next time for you all to pick up as many as you want to put in as many of the businesses as you want. Will you do that for me too?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
We will do that for you. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate you. I can't say thank you enough.
Thank you, ma'am.
Great.
Mrs. Odette Cook.
Sir? Oh, Ms. Cook.
Thank you, Jerry. Y'all have a good one. Thank you.
I am not drinking. I have not been drinking. I am visually impaired. I have about 20% vision in this eye and nothing in this one. So if I walk this way, I haven't been drinking. And Mr. Mayor, you said tentative
Yes,
next
ma'am.
to my name. There is nothing tentative about me.
You're here now.
But I wanted to talk to you, and I thank you for allowing me to be here. There is a problem that is nationwide, worldwide, and that is plastic. We are, I don't know if you have seen this documentary that I have that boggles the mind of, there is a debris of plastic in the middle of the Pacific Ocean between Hawaii and the coast of California that is the size of Texas. Plastic. We have no plastic bins to recycle in Crew. And I have asked previous administration to do something about this lack of place to recycle. And it has never been, nobody has been interested until Mayor Eames mentioned Mr. Procise, who was very patient with me and listened to what I had to say, and it's a question of money. But what I am asking is not a recycling plant, but bins that are put at strategic points throughout the town where people can put their plastic bottles and containers and what have you, and then trucked to the facilities. I think there's something in, I carry my plastic in huge bags to Farmville. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that because I am not a resident of Farmville, but no one has stopped me. We have to do something about this plastic problem. I don't want to, go ahead.
I would say in your engagement with Mr. Procyse, though, he indicated that it was not cost effective for us to do that.
That's right, it's not, but we have to do something, and you have to, and there's got to be a movement, there's got to be I recall in the 50s, some of you are too young to remember the 50s, Mrs. Morton is a child compared to me at her 84. But anyway, a woman by the name of Rachel Carson wrote a book called Silent Springs. And if you have the opportunity of reading this book, please do so. This woman was concerned about the state of the rivers and the oceans and the watersheds and that were polluted, that were killing fish and other mammals and that live in the sea. And through her effort, and it was just one woman, through her effort, we now have a clean Chesapeake Bay, plus all the rivers in the United States that are clean. And I can't say that my effort is going to be nationwide. I wish it were, but it could be crew-wide. And I am asking you to please see it in your budget or be creative in thinking about this problem of plastic recycling.
What I will do is have the town manager engage Mr. Procyse and find out what the status is on the grants and how we can support the grant application process to make that happen.
Walmart recycles plastic. Walmart recycles
Yes, and
plastic.
also,
I know because my husband, because we recycle plastic. and
Yes, I do
That's
too.
where he takes it, is to
right,
Walmart.
I take it to, you remember where Steps was in Farmville? They have a big recycling place in Farmville, aside from Walmart.
All right. What we're gonna do is have y'all can take that offline and talk about
So
that
I just
topic.
was mentioning that.
I understand, but what we'll do is, we'll get the town manager to engage, Mr. Procyse and,
But it's
Find
got to, it's urgent.
yes,
It's
ma'am.
urgent. And I will say one more thing. The French are not known to be told what to do.
That's a fact.
It's a fact. 2 years ago, the 1st of January 2016, they did away with plastic bags. They had warned the population a year in advance. So everybody was prepared to go grocery shopping or shopping and bring their own bags. Let's try and see if this would be a first step in eliminating this scourge.
I understand, ma'am, but we can't do that in the town of Crewe. We're under the Dillon Rule, and Dillon Rule says the General Assembly has to do that kind of thing. We can't just arbitrarily make that kind of law.
I know that, but you're the boss. You make a motion, you go and see them.
Well,
You
we
go
can-
and
we'll-
talk to
we'll
the
talk.
General Assembly.
Yes, ma'am. We can bring up your concern.
Thank
Without
you.
doubt. Thank you for coming. All right, any other public comments? With that in mind, we go to the consent calendar. Matters on the consent calendar are considered routine. Oh, I'm sorry.
I have several
Yes, okay. How about-
questions. I would just like to know, I'd like to get an update on the house with the piano in the yard.
There is no update.
What is the process when someone is given a notice? I'm just curious.
There's no notice to give, there's no violation.
So we're just all allowed to keep all that junk in our yards and do nothing
It's
and,
up on their porch, and they got a right to keep things that they feel like are important. We're not gonna go around telling people what they cannot have on their porch.
so when people like that live like that, then we as the collective citizens in the community, our property values are just allowed to go down and deteriorate because of people like that?
Well, I guess you're getting into legal questions here now, I don't know. What can be done?
That was my first
Well,
question.
the question would be, what I'm hearing, it sounds like to me, would be whether or not it was a nuisance. And then, there are, and I don't have the code in front of me, but there are specifically defined nuisances in the state code and in the Crew Town Code. And so it depend on, would that condition fall into a nuisance that could be abated or remedied in court. And then there's other laws as well that talk about, yard cleanups and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Can you look at our nuisance code?
Sure, I can pull it up right now if you'd
Okay,
like
just
for
kind of
me
compare it
to.
with the state code as well, and make sure we're
Yes.
compliant.
It just seems to me that as I drive through different communities, and, anywhere from, because I'm all over, because of what I do. And you drive through some communities and they're clean and they're crisp and they look good, and then you drive through other communities and they just are falling apart. And obviously that's, I sold real estate for 32 years, and I certainly know the impact that it has on a community when we have properties that are allowed to look like that, within our community, and so.
Go talk to the people that own these type of places, they're the problem. Go talk to the owner, the landlords and stuff like that rent the trash. That's what you get. You got trash, you get trash. Say it how it is. They're the problem.
Well,
We can only do so much, but if we had never mind. I can't even go into the complete details. I believe you should go talk to people that own these houses and talk to them and ask them why would they allow that? Would they allow that beside their house? Probably not.
It's a rental property.
Well, that
9
particular,
out of 10 they probably is.
that particular property is a rental property, I believe.
Nope.
I can't tell you, it's not a rental property? Well, I just know, I sold real estate for 32 years, and I know the impact it has on a community, and it's having an impact on every single one of us that sits in this room and takes care of their properties. It's affecting every one of our property values. So it seems to me that we ought to be able to, if other communities can take care of the problem, then we should be able to take care of the problem also. I didn't mean this to get into a long, lengthy discussion. I think I got my answer, and I think now we maybe just have to look, I don't know, Tessie is looking at that code, but is there another code someplace else that we don't know about? I don't know.
Susan,
but-
you can have all the codes you want to. You can have 1,000 codes, and there are codes. But when it comes right down to making somebody do something like that, it's not that easy. And the attorney will tell you that right now. Because I don't like it, or anybody on council doesn't necessarily like it, doesn't mean that we can walk in and say, you need to do this. Period. They can say, who are you to tell me what I need to do? I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. It's not easy. And Tessie knows it's not easy, and it's expensive. And if you as a taxpaying citizen want to pay for it, I'm sure we can find a way.
Well, maybe I'll try to figure out a way to make that
I
happen.
mean, seriously.
Okay, well,
Am I wrong,
my next
Tessie?
But
question.
we've got several pieces of properties like that, but then our hands, there's one down the street from me that I'd like to see cleaned up, but nothing I can do.
Rabbit cages on one yard.
I have another question. I didn't mean to get into a long-winded debate. Why do I, due to an unfortunate circumstance in front of my house, with my car, I happen to find out that we no longer have a drug and gang task force. May I ask why? Since we do have a drug and
The state has the drug, actually, there's an Ottawa County Drug Task Force that the sheriff and Virginia State Police have, and they are supported by local agencies, okay? But what they do is take our police officer, and they don't let him work locally, they move him out and work other areas. So what we opted to do was just deal with it ourselves internally, because we don't have the manpower to hire somebody on payroll and let them go work for the state of Virginia, 365 days a year. That's what it amounts to, because they're never in their home turf. There's always operating somewhere else.
And my last question is, does Crew have a vision of what we want here?
Yes, ma'am, we have a comprehensive plan, it's posted online. Have you seen that?
Is it a vision or a plan?
It's both. It's both. It's how you incorporate, or how they've incorporated the vision. And
In a brief summary, can you give me the vision?
I couldn't give it to you in a brief summary because it's a pretty lengthy document. Councilman Miskovic and
I'm just curious.
and Vice
What
Mayor
the- what the-
Stinson
I'm
worked
just curious as
extensively
to-
on that, and it's updated every year. I would suggest you read it because it covers several areas. It covers the business aspect, it covers the Parks and Recreation aspect, the healthy eating,
Goes a
active living
lot on that.
stuff, right? But I mean, it's got a full spectrum approach. I would frankly go read it. That would be what I would invite you to do first, and then what we could do, bring you in on the discussions when it gets updated. In fact, we probably ought to have citizen input.
Just as a question, about the wash bucket, how do we, as a nonprofit, fit into the town's vision?
How do you as a nonprofit fit into the town?
It does wash
Well, you
buckets,
define your
nonprofit.
own mission.
Huh?
That you define your own mission, what we
Well,
have
our
to do.
mission, our mission is to help revitalize old towns, but that's a fairly broad mission statement, really, in the
So
big
what is
scheme
your
of
niche?
things.
If you've got a broad mission statement, where's your niche? Where's the part where you think you can make the biggest bang for the buck as
Well,
far as your time goes?
my vision, but I feel as a part of this too, would be to concentrate on the business, on the businesses in town and whatnot. But how does that correlate and work in conjunction with what the town itself wants to do? I'm just curious.
Good question. Good question.
Because
Well,
it seems to me
But I
that
mean,
if we're going.
you've got several proposals out already. I know one for an art museum, okay? We're waiting to have a meeting on that.
Well, but for.
You've got another proposal out to fix sidewalks because you put in for some grants.
Well, we're looking at doing some of those things. Those
Okay,
are all
so we're kind of
thought
waiting to
process.
take your lead in that regard. I mean, you've already initiated these things.
Well, we've initiated the thought process, that's for
Alright.
sure. Some things, we've applied for some grants, we haven't applied for others, and so. But it seems to me that united we stand, divided we fall. And so as a community and as a nonprofit organization, and all of the nonprofit organizations in town, if we all come together and we unify our thought process and work together, then maybe we'll actually accomplish something. Instead of each one of us doing just a little bit here, and a little bit here, and a little bit here. Seems to me that we can really take charge as a community if we draw ourselves together. And so I'm asking, as a private citizen, and also because I've, headed this, tried to start this nonprofit, how we can better work, how we can work together to unify ourselves so that we can really get something done.
Well, you have to-
Because we all have to be kind of on the same track.
But you have to understand the role of government is primarily public oversight for funding. I mean, that's basically what we do, is to provide police protection, provide fire protection and emergency squads. the emergency services basically, streets, garbage pickup, water and sewer, that's our primary function. Infrastructure, if you take care of the infrastructure, then that should set the stage so business can come in and do what business does best, which is free enterprise. As far as volunteer organizations, I've never known us to turn down anything from a volunteer organization. Now, do we have any specific volunteer organizations mentioned in the comprehensive plan? No, ma'am, I'm sure we don't. But we don't need to. We will work with anybody that has a project. You've already approached me about 2 projects.
You know, we've got a lot of things that we've talked about, and a lot of things that we're, you know, that we have great ideas and trying to put them
Yes,
together.
ma'am, but now we can't do the work for you, that's the
We
thing.
understand
I mean,
that.
you know,
That I understand.
Everybody here works, they've got jobs that they have to take care of. And the other question is it the role of government to do some of the things that you want to do? Now, as far as the sidewalks, yes. I think you and Wade have already talked to the town manager, already talked about that. As far as the art center, we will.
Yeah, that's just, in
It's a
very
concept,
early.
but it's a great concept, and I think, you know, if you've got.
Well, I think it's a wonderful concept if
Sure.
we can make it happen.
But what can the town do for that? I don't know. I mean, we can't put money towards it. Now, can we co-sponsor a grant? I'm sure we could, a grant application. That would be up to council, but we can't do it for other people.
I understand that.
Yeah. All right. good
Mayor
enough.
Eames.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like you to send someone of the council to my next door neighbors who have abandoned the house. And there are snakes that are coming in my yard.
Okay. What's that address?
I am 1110, they have to be 1112,
Okay.
West Carolina. It's a jungle.
Is he around?
I think he's incarcerated.
Good reason why.
Raj? Okay. All right, all right.
I have been,
Can you look at that tomorrow? All right, yes, ma'am, we'll take care of that tomorrow. We'll look at it tomorrow.
please do,
Yes, ma'am.
please do. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, with that in mind, if there's nobody else, we'll move on to the consent calendar.
Steve.
Matters on the consent calendar considered routine and will be approved by one motion. Any item to be removed from the calendar at the request of a member of council may be voted on separately. You should have the minutes of the town council
He's gonna walk
meeting
out.
on the 9th,
Thank you.
25th, from the budget work session, and then the bill sheet in additions.
You know, I can drive, I want to
I make a motion to accept the consent calendar with the additions to the bills.
All right, Mr. Knight makes the motion.
Second.
Mr. Reed makes the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, by like sign. Town manager report.
I had emailed and talked to a bunch of y'all about the air conditioning system here at the library and what we felt like we needed to do. The main unit services the actual library, we thought was dead. Ronnie would breathe some light back into it. It's running again, but it sounds like it's just a matter of time. So I didn't want to just say that we haven't actually gone and replaced that, but right now it's running. Still, the estimated cost on that is going to be around $7,500 to replace that unit. The budget, we've pretty much wrapped up the budget with all the adjustments that we talked about in our work session, and I think we're ready to go to public hearing on that. So we'll bring that to the June 11th council meeting, public hearing and final approval. Because we've had some requests, I've decided to go in and do a spring cleanup. It's going to be probably more summer cleanup, but the week of June 4th, which would be 4th through the 8th, and just to refresh everybody's memory, this is when folks can put out items that we don't normally pick up to discard. Appliances, furniture, old furniture, things of that nature. We've had a couple people ask about that, so we're going to go ahead and do it. We cannot pick up paint cans with paint, we dispose of tires. So other than that, we pretty much can take anything. Because all of the world's citizens to take advantage of that. It's abuse. This is gonna be my annual first discussion about yards, grasses. It's a huge problem, once again. We've passed out over 40 grass notices. Some handed out, some mailed. Many of the properties have cut theirs since we've handed out the notices, but we've got quite a few that haven't. One thing I want to emphasize this year, when we cut yards, and also I want to thank the police. Police are helping us a lot, which has never really happened in the past with this type of thing. If we hand out a notice, they'll follow up for us and even do a little bit of the work that helps us. I think it means more from a uniform when they come knocking on the door. We've had some success with that. We're still fighting some battles, but they've done real well. We cut yards, we bill them, we keep going up. What's happening is these people are not paying. If it's a absentee owner or a vacant property, we send the bill, they don't pay it. So it gets to a point where, what are we gonna do? And Tessie and I've had a little bit of discussion about this. And what we need to do, and what we're gonna do, is go ahead and attach liens against this property. And it's not gonna stop right there, because if you attach a lien, then you say, well, they can't sell the property if it's got a lien on it, so you'll eventually get paid. That part is true, but in my mind, that's not good enough. I think what we're gonna do at some point, I don't know, we'll pick a dollar amount, $500 to $1,000 if somebody owes us that much money, then we attach a tax lien against it. Because my understanding is we can public sell it just like tax lien.
Okay, do we need a motion from council to approve that process, or it's already in place, it's by law?
It's already in
Okay,
place
so-
by ordinance.
All right, perfect.
So we've got probably a handful right now with bills that have accumulated over $1,000. And the next thing's gonna happen is that the liens are going on the property and almost immediately. However, attorney tells us we need to give time, 30 days, 45 days, notification that it's going to public sale. Somebody can come along and bid on it and buy it. It's my understanding they buy it for, as long as we get our money, we don't really care. And that's the only thing I know to do to make these people start paying.
I agree.
And every year we go through this, and it's just ridiculous. Houses that have people living in them, whether they be renters, they got landlords or they own it, and I want to cut the town services off. I'm not sure we can do that, but after a fair warning, if they don't cut their yards or they don't pay a bill where we cut it for them, we cut off the services. And we do not cut it back on until we get paid, regardless of who they are. Because it's getting out of hand. Now people are cutting them. Suddenly we've sent notices, and this goes to a little bit what Susan's talking, what we were talking about earlier. We got ordinances, and we told them they got to cut. It says grass and weeds and grub. They'll come in there and they'll cut it with a lawnmower, and that's it. It's halfway done. So we go in at that point and finish the job and bill them? Yeah, I think we do. And when we bill them, it's not $25. Because I got 4 men out there, a lot of times with equipment, because you can't get through these yards with a regular lawnmower. And we want to charge them accordingly. And I say, if they want to challenge it, go to court. Take pictures of it. I mean, it's got to stop. It's just got to stop. It takes up so much of our time every summer. It's just ridiculous. So that's what we're going to be working on.
When you charge them for those man hours, you make sure you charge them too for the employer payroll cost sharing and the tax. All right.
Just real quick, I know everybody's wondering about the B&M building.
About what?
B&M building. Hopefully we're going to have that thing secured up, shored up before homecoming. I know there are a lot of efforts being made to do that right now. I think Kim's Construction is supposed to come back and put some more support. It's a concern, I think, for everybody, all the traffic that will be in there. But we're working on it. It's not our problem, but it is our problem because of the homecoming situation. So
Any questions from council to the town manager?
Just a quick question, on the additions to the bill sheet, do we usually pay for election services?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I thought that was the county.
That's why I asked if we had.
Well, I'm ready for you what people do after that.
All right, then on town attorney's report.
Yes, thank you. One thing to kind of build on what the town manager was discussing, in addition to that, another thing we do have in our ordinance, and I pulled it up when I was looking up the nuisances too, is that we can also take them to court and get a civil penalty against them. $50 for the first violation, and then it can go up to $200, and every day is an additional violation. Ultimately, it could lead to class 3 misdemeanor as well. So,
Let's stop right there a minute. Let's say we did all of that. What's the process? Who goes, you?
yes, it would be me going.
$50?
Yeah, exactly.
That's not gonna work.
Yeah, unless you did a whole bunch of them day after day, but then you still have the problem of collectability,
That's
which
the
is the
problem.
same problem you have with the lien. So,
I mean,
yeah, the only way I can think of that the civil penalties are worth it is if you have somebody that actually has assets in the community and owns a whole bunch of houses, let's say, and then just isn't taking care of their properties. Because then that civil penalty would actually be a judgment that you could record, and it wouldn't just be a lien against that property, it would be a lien against all of their properties. So that would be how that would be worthwhile. Or people that are actually scared to go to court, which I don't know how many of them exist anymore. So just a thought. Mayor, did you want me to also bring up about the
Sure.
deeds now? Okay. I had been working on getting some deeds together for the town, and I may need some help explaining this.
This
but-
is the park property that the Jennings, we were having a hard time getting it transferred, and Tessie volunteered to go ahead and take care of that. So she's got the paperwork done to
Yes.
obtain the area around Galubic, and it's two different owners, the Shrek property and the Jennings property.
Correct, and I do have those draft deeds. The only thing we need from council, since council isn't the one selling it, but the one kind of accepting the property, would be just a vote to approve the donation of the property.
Okay.
And then from there, we can get it to the owners just for their signatures and record it.
Okay.
And so we do need a vote on that.
All right, do we have a motion to accept the property that is being donated by the Jennings family, and that $2,600 piece of property that's being sold by the Shrek?
Make a motion.
We have a motion, we have a second. All right, who's the second? I'm stable. All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed by like sign. Motion carries.
That's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, next you have the mayor's report. I'm not gonna go through what you have in front of you. The only thing I would mention is the crew homecoming is Saturday, the 19th from 9 to 5. At Hooper Park, there is normally something, I did not have the details, I assume that's still on, or are you, anybody aware that it's not gonna happen? They have a children's fair at Hooper Park? Okay. So that'll be on Friday. Luckstone is having a meeting on May 24th at the Crew Community Center. There's a meeting for the public, hosted by Luckstone, to educate people as to what's happening with the rock quarry, and basically explain and answer questions that the general public may have. A late addition you have in front of you is a resolution to rename the Crew Municipal Hagberg Park Complex as Crew Veterans Memorial Park. As you know, we're coming up on Memorial Day. This is also the centennial anniversary of the First World War. I have the resolution, I will read it. It says, whereas the year 2018 marks the centennial anniversary of the First World War, in which approximately 687 men from Nottoway County served, of which about 146 were from the town of Crew, and nearly 17 died. And whereas 2018 marks the 75th anniversary year for the Second World War, in which approximately 681 men and women from Crew served, of which 18 are known to have been killed in action. And whereas the Korean War occurred over 64 years ago, and in which approximately 146 Nottaway County men and women served, and of which one crewman is known to have been killed in action. And whereas 2018 marks a 50th anniversary year for the war in Vietnam, in which nearly 300 Nottaway County men and women served, of which 174 are from Crew and at least 2 were killed. And whereas the veterans of these and later conflicts returned home, turned their swords into plowshares, and continued to contribute to the community as good citizens. And whereas the veterans of foreign wars, Post 7819 and American Legion Post 50 established a town war memorial in the Crew Municipal Park. Therefore, be it hereby resolved, the Crew Town Council publicly expresses its appreciation to those veterans who have served in the armed forces of the United States, and be it further resolved, we honor and preserve the memory of their services by renaming the Crew Municipal Hagberg Park Complex as the Crew Veterans Memorial Park, designating the entire site as a Virginia War Memorial consistent with Virginia State Code 15.2-1812, Memorials for War Veterans. As we are at Memorial Day, I thought this was an appropriate time to offer this. Any discussion, or do we have a motion to approve?
I would
Yes, sir.
just, the designation is the Virginia War Memorial,
A Virginia.
a Virginia War Memorial. Does that adversely impact anything the chamber does with the Christmas decorations, especially the religious-based Christmas
I wouldn't think so, because it's a town, it's a Virginia War Memorial by the definition of that code. Or a war memorial, we can take out Virginia, if that's bothersome, we can delete that. Okay.
It's, as long as we're comfortable with it not adversely impacting anything that's currently going on.
Let me just delete Virginia then, and we'll designate it as a war memorial consistent with Virginia State Code. Okay? All right. With that in mind, I need a motion.
So we
Mr. Sisk, make a motion. Second? Second. Mr. Reed, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed by like sign. Motion carries. Rick? Mr. Gunner? You want a copy of that? With that in mind, we go into committee reports. Infrastructure?
everything looks smooth and groovy.
Smooth and groovy.
Finance? Finance?
No report.
No report. Personnel? Ms. Stinson is absent. Mr. Knight?
No.
Okay. Volunteer services?
No report.
No report. Economic development?
The field committee's having a meeting on Friday at 1 o'clock here, and the VFHY board is meeting on the 17th to determine grants to see if we're going to get one of those grants.
Okay, what board is that?
The VFHY, Virginia Foundation Company, that's
Okay.
the grant that we applied for.
Okay.
When is that meeting?
The HEAL meeting,
Yeah.
the VFHY board, I believe, is on the 17th.
What's the HEAL?
Friday, here at 1 o'clock.
This Friday?
That's right.
And that's open all over to the public?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Do we have any continuing business? All right, any new business?
Just a piece of new business, Mayor. I also have a resolution that I'll read.
Sure.
Whereas the Crew Burkeville Lions Club was organized on June 5th, 1968 by 22 civic-minded charter members, and I listed them, but in the interest of time, I won't read all their names. Whereas the Crew Burkeville Lions Club added an additional 82 members in its 50-year history, and whereas the Crew Burkeville Lions Club has given selflessly to the local area through community service projects like collecting and recycling glasses and hearing aids, distributing gifts at Piedmont Geriatric Hospital, performing repairs and upkeep at the Burkeville Lodge for the Blind, holding health screenings, donating earplugs to Virginia Power and Wilkerson Tire, painting rooms at Madeline's house, and many other activities. And whereas the Crew Burkeville Lions Club can be seen around the community, holding fundraisers and community events, participating in the Crew Christmas Parade, making best funnel cakes in Southside Virginia at Crew Homecoming each year. And whereas over the past 50 years, the Crew Burkeville Lions Club has made monetary donations totaling $50,264 to pay for 182 eye exams and eyeglasses for individuals in need, and has recycled 6,064 eyeglasses and 41 hearing aids. And whereas the Crew Burkeville Lions Club is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. Now therefore be it resolved that the Crew Town Council and Mayor do hereby congratulate the Crew Burkeville Lions Club on their 50th anniversary, calling upon all citizens of the town of Crew to recognize the selfless service of the Crew Burkeville Lions Club, and be it resolved further that the clerk of the town of Crew prepare a copy of this resolution for presentation to the Crew Burkeville Lions Club as an expression of the town's deeply held respect for their service.
Outstanding. You were making the motion for the resolution.
I
Do you
am.
have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, by like sign. Motion carries. Can you please see that Mr. Gunn?
Absolutely.
Copy that? Outstanding. So is there any other new business? Very well, we move on to points of personal privilege. Mr. Westcott.
Just one, I was recently reappointed to serve on VML's legislative committee. So if anyone has any legislative issues for VML, let me know. We're meeting on at the end of the month, I believe,
End of the month.
something like that.
I'm glad you're on there. All right, Mr. Abel. Mr. Knight. Mr. Fox. Mr. Sis.
I got one thing to say, and that's in regards to Mr. Houchins. The town lost a great mentor and a wonderful man. I just want y'all to keep the family in prayers. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Reed. All right. With that in mind, we move back into public comments. Any public comments? All right, no public comments. We have no need to go into executive session that I'm aware of. Okay. With that in mind, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.